Hey, welcome to Tarot Tuesday. Today I'm going to tackle a difficult topic that's potentially toxic, that of masculinity. I actually put off talking about this a couple of months ago because I chickened out, so stay tuned and see how I handle it. My name is Shannon Douglas. I'm the author of Chasing Quicksilver, and today's topic is masculinity and the male archetype in tarot. Last week in my gender video, Danger, Gender video, I talked about the three aspects of the feminine archetype, the mother, maiden, and crone, as they appear in the Empress card. And I actually talked about gender in the first 5 cards of the deck. Today, I'm going to tackle a topic that I've been putting off, which is the Emperor and the masculine archetypes. Make sure that you like or dislike. Be prepared, because this is a controversial one. I'm getting some quote-unquote feedback from social justice and ideological gender people and some feminists who aren't sticking around to leave their comments up, but have got some lovely things to say about me. So lots of people have questions about tarot when it comes to inversions, and when people are learning tarot for the beginning, the first part of their tarot journey, very often they read the upright meaning of the cards. We get a little tarot book along with our decks that gives us some mnemonics and some memory keys for giving information about what a card means when it's turned in a divination. And deeper underlying that, we have the capacity to learn the archetypes and experience the archetypes and explore the archetypes through our life, which I really think is the true or part of the true aspects and power of tarot that help us to transform as a psychological map or a book of leaves. Today I'm going to talk about masculinity, and this is a dangerous topic. People are going to be upset, I expect. And there's a lot of current illusions and things projected onto what masculinity is. And we hear the term toxic masculinity an awful lot, and a term patriarchy an awful lot. And there's been a lot of stuff going on with gender in the last few decades, because we really are in a place in time in human history when we don't have the benchmarks of meaning that we once had as communities as to what normal biological gender roles are. And when I say that, I mean motherhood and fatherhood and parenting and raising a family and contributing to communities, and those things weren't a choice for us as human beings only a couple of generations ago. Those were the realities that we dealt with. We dealt with short lifespans. We dealt with high infant mortality and high mortality in motherhood and childbirth, and we dealt with all kinds of problems that we've been able to solve over the last 100 years or so. And in solving a bunch of the problems that we've had as societies, food reliability, energy supply, resources, education, literacy, all of those things, and things like birth control, which I've talked about, we put ourselves in a position as a society where we kind of don't know how to act. We don't know how to behave as men and women, and we're trying to sort through a bunch of those questions, and it's creating an awful lot of interesting conversations. It's also creating an awful lot of difficult ones. So what does it mean to be a man? It's funny, I made an attempt in my last video, which you can link to from here, about what the female archetype is and how the female archetype expresses itself. And maybe the best way for me to approach this is to say, what's the masculine archetype and how does the masculine archetype express itself? And in the Emperor card, we can see the astrological symbol of Aries. That's the ram. And Aries is a symbol of fire. It corresponds to the planet Mars, and it represents the active principle in humanity, the active extroverted drive, aggression, action, and outside movement. Now, in the traditional masculine, or within the traditional masculine archetype, we have a number of different expressions of manhood or masculinity. One of those is the hero. Another one is the warrior. Another one is the knight. And another one is the wizard. And we also have archetypes of fathers and sons. So what is the nature of masculinity? What does it mean to be a man? Well, as we first start to develop, particularly young boys, as we come into puberty and our early manhood, we start to test our boundaries. And when men or young men test their boundaries, it's it can be pretty dumb and spectacularly dumb to watch, because our brains don't stop developing until we're about 25 years old. So we've got this 10-year period as guys where we do a lot of dumb stuff. But one of the early manifestations of masculinity and testosterone is territorial aggression, and this is a biological process. And so we start to determine and suss out what our position is within the male environment around us, and we can see that manifest or express itself in competition. So we compete when we're on a team of sports with somebody. We compete to be the best player on the team, to be the star forward, or the whatever the position happens to be, and we compete within our cohort. But we also compete against other men, and this expresses itself also in territorial aggression, male bonding. Sometimes we see this in sort of gang-related or group identity, tribal behavior in young men that has to do with honor, trust, and that bonding of aggression. Where we have a hierarchy, and men start to negotiate and understand their position in the masculine hierarchy in terms of what the pecking order is, and it becomes pretty clear pretty fast that there are different types of hierarchies that men navigate, and one of them that Jordan Peterson talks about is the competence hierarchy. And so we determine our place in a hierarchy by how good we are at something, and how proficient we are at something, and that's when we start to differentiate ourselves within the environment, and we figure out what our hierarchy is that we're going to climb, whether it's a career type or an expression in sports or what have you, and we derive our identity from that jockeying or jocularity and positioning within the particular dominance hierarchy that we're in. Now, what's the point from a biological perspective for men to compete for dominance within a hierarchy, within a structure like that? And very simply, it's breeding. It is to compete for the most eligible females. And it's a game that we've played as human beings. It's going to be the same kind of dance that we can compare to peacocks. Peacocks have these tremendously fancy tails, and male peacocks compete in displays of dominance in order to attract a mate, and that is fundamentally the biological function behind men's behavior as we're figuring out, especially in these teen years, how to navigate what dominance hierarchy. And we've figured out by now that Neanderthal is not a successful breeding strategy. So men often go through, as I said, a really dumb period where the mind hasn't developed that much, and we think in terms of ooga ooga. It's true. But we develop beyond that, and we get feedback from our communities and our environment about what is a successful dominance strategy or dominance hierarchy strategy in order to be attractive to women. And then as we begin to pair bond with women in our lives, our identity becomes, because now we won the game, right? Once we've won the game, once we have found our place in our communities, and we reach a certain stage in life, and we have paired with a partner in life, a man's role and identity comes from his capacity to provide and protect, and his identity comes from that, and so this is where the pride comes in. And we want to be giving, supporting, protecting, sharing, and raising our children as part of our natural biological drive. for most men. Now, there are some men that are extremely successful in the dominance hierarchy. I know a guy who identifies himself as a lion. And women chase him. There was a guy I went to high school like this, starting in grade 8. Women were crying over this guy in the hallways of school, and he was so attractive and so enticing and to young women that they fought for him. And this continued well into his 40s, and he never had to settle down in any way, because he just had, for a combination of athleticism and good looks and charm and everything else, he won that lottery, and owned his role as a lion. And what that meant that he was prolific, let's say, in terms of his number of encounters and relationship over his lifetime, because women threw themselves at him. Now, some people might think that's lucky, and if you're one of those teenage boys who's fighting for a place in the dominance hierarchy, that seems pretty attractive, but I think for most men that's a lonely existence. The flip side, I'll acknowledge, of masculinity is tyranny. It's aggressive tyranny, controlling, domineering, inflexibility, self-interest, in fighting in that dominance hierarchy and in trying to manage and control people in their environment. And we can look at two interesting words I learned first in my probably my first psychology class in college. We learned the difference between authoritarian and authoritative behavior. And an authoritarian individual is bully. And when men exert authoritarian tendencies and display authoritarian tendencies, it can take the form of physical aggression, or power displays, or forceful energy upon a situation. Now, so we're getting into this question of what is the unhealthy expression of the masculine archetype, and we all know how unhealthy that expression can be, because it's part of our common language in the society that we live in today. Now, I'll also say, as I'm finishing this off, that women have the ability to be extremely toxic as well. There is an inversion expression of the Empress archetype. Here is her right side up, symbol of Venus. The inverse expression, or the negative expression of the female archetype, fits with stories and legends and patterns of behavior that we are cognizant of in our history. Women, we get the word cunning from female-related words having to do with manipulation. And while men are externally aggressive and exert physical power, or can exert physical power or force in terms of their energy and their environment, and be authoritarian, the negative expression of the female archetype is manipulation. It's psychological, emotional, and psychic manipulation. That's the internal aspect of energy. Now, I'm going to say again before I close, if you don't like what I'm saying, hit the don't like. If you like this video, make sure you like it. Subscribe. I'm doing my best to navigate some challenging topics that we navigate through in tarot, and have to talk about with people if we're doing card readings, or we have to understand if we're studying cards for our own reflection and development, that men and women can be equally toxic. We just express our toxicity in different ways, and there are men who express the female trait of being cunning and manipulative, and they they enter and utilize that archetype. And there are women who are overtly aggressive and express masculine authoritarian tendencies and overt bullying as well. So this isn't about the biological equipment that we have. It's about the kind of energy that we run through our systems, our fields, and the kind of energies that we experience and the kind of energies that we express in the lives that we live. So that is my attempt. Let me know how I did. My name is Shannon Douglas. I'm the author of Chasing Quicksilver, and this has been Tarot Tuesdays.